Slow cookers are the masters of delicious food that take hours to cook without you having to stand over them for hours. Now, my mum used to only bring the slow cooker out in winter, but what's more summery than tacos? So today I'm going to show you 2 great set and forget methods for making delicious beef brisket barbacoa tacos. I'm going to use the family favorite slow cooker for one method and just a regular oven for the other method if you don't have a slow cooker. This recipe is guaranteed to become a family favorite and make taco night more delicious. A huge thank you to Australian Beef for sponsoring this video, but let's go back to yesterday and start preparing this brisket. So, the brisket. Tough cut of meat, and there's actually a couple of different muscles going on here. This part here, which is the thinner part, is called the flat. This part here, which is the thicker part, has a couple of different muscles running a couple of different ways, we call the point. If you like it a bit fattier, ask your butcher for the point end. If you like it a bit leaner, ask for the flat end. I like the fattier end because I just like that extra flavor. But some people aren't a huge fan of the gelatinous texture that the lots of fat gives you. But if you're gonna make a lot of barbacoa, this is a great place to start with a whole one and then cutting it up yourself. So all we need to do at this point is to cut it up into some big pieces. And it's worth mentioning, this brisket has already been trimmed for smoking, and all the trimmings I use to make burgers. If I was doing this with a whole brisket, I probably wouldn't trim it anywhere near as aggressive as this. I just leave most of it on. So let's cut this up into decent sized chunks. So I want chunks about this size. What's that? 5 centimeters square. And the reason we want nice big chunks, because when we pull it once it's cooked, we want some half decent strands there. We don't want it to be mush. And then what quality do you need? Well, go talk to your butcher and see what fits in your budget. There's nothing wrong with using just your entry-level quality brisket for this, and I wouldn't use something top-end like Wagyu. This is an Angus brisket, and I think it works really well. I also really like the flavor. And if you're running short of time, you can even ask your butcher to cut this up for you. And this is a great example of the point end of the brisket and the flat end. Lean, long strands of muscle as compared to the point. Got a big piece of fat running right through the center and a lot more intramuscular fat in the strands as well. There you go. So that's 5.5 kilos of brisket. Now, how much do you need for your family? As a general rule of thumb, I'd say a family of 4, I'd do 1 kilo at a time. However, this is one of those recipes that's actually perfect for bulk cooking. So do 2 kilos, do 3 kilos even, because once you've cooked it, you can leave it in the fridge and use it for different things other than tacos. You can use it on nachos, you can make sandwiches out of it, you can make rolls out of it, or you can even freeze it. So do at least a double or even a triple batch. Right, now we're just gonna season this with salt, then we're gonna seal it off in our cast iron pan and get some good color on all sides. I've got a dry cast iron pan, I'm not putting any oil in. I'm gonna find these real big fatty bits and put those down in first. And that's the fat we're gonna render to help seal off all this meat. Okay, now all that meat has got really good color on it. Because we're not actually cooking this till tomorrow, some of it, and some of it not cooking till much later tonight, just let it out and let it come down in temperature. It'll still be cold in the center. We want that outside to come down in temperature. Next up, we need to make the sauce, which is what the brisket's gonna cook in. So we're gonna need ancho chili, which is one of my favorite chilies. It smells like raisins to me, it's delicious. Pasilla chili, which are these like nice large ones here. And chipotle. Now, the ancho and pastilla, they're pretty easily to get now in Australia. You can definitely get them in the US, but just go online. You'll be able to order them, they'll come in a couple of days. As long as you don't live like super regional. Dried chipotles are a little bit harder to find. If you can't find the dried chipotles online anywhere, just get the chipotle in adobo sauce. You can get that in the supermarkets now. So we're gonna cut all these chilies open and we're gonna de-seed and de-stem them. Just rip them up a bit, leave them to one side. Repeat with all your chilies. Now don't be put off. If you've got kids or family members that don't like it spicy, this honestly isn't that spicy. This is why we take all the seeds and stems out of these chilies. Well, the stems because they're bitter. It's not like a super spicy dish. Dazz eats this and she's a wuss.
That's true, I'm a wuss.
If you do like it spicy, however, you know everyone eating it is gonna like it spicy, then still do this process. But when you go to cook it, add in about 1/2 or a little bit less, depending on how spicy you like it, of these, just the seeds. And that's what's gonna give it a lot of heat. But even for me, someone who likes it spicy, I prefer just to kind of control my levels of spice through my salsas that I'm eating. Ooh. Oh, poor ducky's gonna have a bit of a hard time if he finds one of those. So I've got a pot here, that's boiling water. Turn that off now, it's boiling. Take the lid off and add all our chilies with the lid off and the heat off. We're just trying to steep those. While we're steeping those, what is barbacoa? Well, barbacoa is a very traditional Mexican dish that's actually normally cooked underground, much like a hangi where I come from in Aotearoa. It can be lamb, goat, or beef, depends on where you are. But I guess the modern version of barbacoa is lamb or beef. That's kind of cooked in an oven because digging a hole out your backyard sometimes can be a bit challenging. Now, I've had barbacoa in Texas and LA. I've never had it in Mexico, but I can't wait to get over there and try it the traditional way with the goat or the lamb. But I think this is the next best thing. And I think it's a great way to introduce some different flavors to your family staple. You know, using this much chili without the seeds removed has a completely different complexity to how I grew up eating chili as a Kiwi. And I think it will surprise you. It's really delicious. Lots of delicious flavors of chocolate and raisin, like I was saying earlier, and then like, you know, capsicum and all kinds of amazing things. So to the jug of a blender, we are gonna add, for this much brisket, a head of garlic. The recipe below will be for 1 kilo of brisket, just so that it's easier reference when you go to your butcher. You can do 1 kilo, 2 kilos, whatever you want to do. White onion. Now, in Mexican cooking, they only really use white onions. They don't really use red onions, they definitely don't use brown onions. However, in Australia, sometimes it's hard to find white onions. If you find yourself in that predicament, swap them out with red onions. I think it's the best kind of comparison, even though they're kind of not the same thing. Oregano, 2 tablespoons. And we've got a couple of cinnamon sticks, but we're gonna put those straight into our cooking vessels later. Our steeped chilies. Don't need to drain them super well, and keep all that water. We will be using it. 2 cloves, actually, 3 cloves. White distilled vinegar. About 200 mils. And we're gonna start blending this. If we need to use any liquid to get this finer or smoother, we'll use the water that we got from the chilies earlier. All right, now that's nice and smooth. Be really careful because you don't want that in your eye. We're gonna add it back to the water from our chilies. The only reason we didn't put it all in the blender is because it wouldn't have all fitted. If you're doing a smaller batch and it all fits, then go for it. Shove it all on there. So just mix that so that it's all one. We're just gonna let that chill out for half an hour, come down in temperature, and then we'll arrange our pots ready to be cooked overnight and first thing in the morning. So the slow cooker method, now perfect because it just sits overnight. We're gonna cook it for 8 to 10 hours. You can do it overnight, you can do it during the day while you're at work. It's up to you. I'm gonna do mine overnight, but suggestion, if you're gonna do it during the day, do this part the day before, put it in your fridge, and then in the morning, put it on low that night when you go home from work, dinner's done. Then we're just gonna put the sauce in. Now we're not braising this, right? It's not like doesn't need to be completely covered in sauce, but we definitely need enough of this liquid to be in there so that by the end of the cook, it's not dry. But that's enough. I'll get Mitch to come in nice and close. You know, there's still a bit of space at the top, but there's definitely enough sauce in there to make sure. We're just gonna mix this around a bit to make sure all that meat is actually covered in that delicious sauce. I'm actually gonna add 1 more ladle in there. Cool. Lid on. Ooh, almost forgot my cinnamon. Cinnamon stick in. Lid on to the slow cooker, on low, 10 to 12 hours. The oven method. Now this is gonna take 5 to 6 hours, and we're gonna have the oven on 120 degrees Celsius. Load up a good oven tray with the meat. I'm gonna add the sauce too that was from the resting. All of our chili sauce on that, guys. Just like before, give all your meat a little wiggle. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. I'm probably gonna get copyright infringement now. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Oh no, I'm making a mess. Don't forget your cinnamon stick. Look at that. Now we're gonna clean up our edge because it was a bit of a grub. The trick is with this oven method, we're trying to seal it in because we want the moisture or the humidity to stay nice and high. That's what happens when they're cooking it underground. They cover it completely with like cactus leaves and agave leaves and all kinds of stuff, and they cover it in soil, and that keeps all that moisture in there. So first step is we're gonna use a piece of cooking paper. And the reason we use cooking paper is actually more so to protect it from the foil. When you cook stuff for a long time in the oven with foil, sometimes that foil can stick, and I don't really want that foil touching my food. So 1, 2, 3. Nice and tight, and that's it. Tomorrow morning, first thing, my oven's going on 120 degrees Celsius. I'm not even gonna wait for that to heat up. I'm just gonna bang this thing in there. And 5 hours later, Perfect. So for us, it's gonna be great. We can have this ready for lunch. You can do it all in the same day. If it's a Sunday thing for the family, start first thing in the morning and you got Sunday dinner ready. Salsa Verde, this has become one of my favorite salsas for a couple of reasons. It's absolutely delicious and it's super easy to make. So all you need is tomatillos. Now, I've seen fresh tomatillos in Australia once in my life, so we can only really get the canned stuff. If you're using fresh ones, just blanch them in boiling water for like 1 minute before you start doing this next process. Other than that, all we do, 1 jalapeno sliced, maybe 2 cloves of garlic, 2 big cloves, 3 small ones. The garlic at the moment we're getting is just massive. Makes my life easier. And there you go. Then get a blender, or a food processor would work too. All this goes in. A whole bunch of coriander. I've washed this really well. Just chop it up so it's easier to get in, stems and all. Make sure you wash it though, because coriander is always super sandy, and the stuff we get is anyway. Juice of 1 lime, and a pinch of salt. Just go easy on the salt at the start, because sometimes if you're using the tinned tomatillos, they have got salt in them already. Lid on, blend it away. Have a taste. That needs nothing else. Salsa done. How easy is that? You could also do this with the salsa roja, which is like that was the most Kiwi way to say that, with salsa roja. Salsa roja, which is a red version of that. So you're gonna use red chili, tomatoes, onions, and you can cook that as well. So if you wanna put that in a dry pan, no oil, get some good char and do that. It's another great version of salsa. But I'm loving this one at the moment. Super zingy, fresh, tasty, and so easy to make. I just need something to put it in. And if the kids don't like it spicy, or you don't like it spicy, just leave the jalapeno out, or just take the seeds out at least. Once those seeds are out, it'll be way less spicy. All right, let's check this meat. Start pulling that. I think it should be ready. Ooh, all right, slow cooker. This was actually on for 14 hours, which is the great thing about slow cooking, because it was probably ready an hour and a half ago, but it can kind of just sit there. Doesn't really matter. It's within reason. So we're gonna pull the big chunks out, pull them, and then add liquid back to it. Look at that. And if when you're going to go buy your brisket and you talk to your butcher and they don't have any in stock, or they've only got an expensive one, or you just want to use something else, then talk to them, ask them what they think would be a good substitute, because there's plenty of good alternatives to brisket for this. You need something with like half decent connective tissue, and a little bit of fat is helpful, but they're a wealth of knowledge, so pull from it. This is why we keep the beef in bigger strands, because you end up with some texture here too. If it was small pieces, it would probably cook faster, but you don't end up with as much texture. And you see these parts here, which is the really fatty parts, make sure you pull those extra well, because you want that through there. You want a bit of fat in there. Don't be scared of the fat. That'll keep it nice and moist, but you don't want a big piece of fat effectively. Now we've got our meat pulled, we're gonna start adding the liquid. Start with 2 ladles full and mix it through. We want this juicy, but we don't want it so wet that it just destroys your taco. So just do it like a ladle at a time at this point. That's taken a lot of that liquid. And we might be at the point where we actually use it all, but we don't want to put it in and then not be able to take it out. So I'm really happy with the level of moisture we've gotten to that. I pretty much used all of that liquid, apart from maybe 1 ladle full. Let's have a taste. Oh, juicy, super deep, rich flavor. You can taste all those, the really complex flavor those chilies come through. So that's ready to use. If you're not using this straight away, if you want to chill this down and keep it in your fridge, do that by all means. Let it come to room temperature before you put it in your fridge. I'd probably go a little bit wetter if you're kind of cooling this down. You can also freeze this. But let's put this aside and pull apart the stuff that's been in the oven. Oh! Everyone closes the oven with their leg. So the oven version, this was 6 hours in total. After 5 hours, I took the foil off and the paper and turned the temperature up to 150 and let it go for the last hour, and that gets us this lovely kind of caramelization at the top. Did exactly the same as we did with the slow cooker one. I'm gonna pull all this meat out and pull it apart before we stir back through some of that sauce. And just like before, you're gonna add the sauce a little bit at a time, but I think this one will take all that sauce. We're cooking at a higher temperature, we get more evaporation, so the sauce is a lot thicker, but it still looks pretty good. Just sending it. Watch this, me regret that. And don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date with all my recipes. We have a quick tidy up, and then we just need to heat some tacos up, and we're ready to eat. So there you go, with what honestly was an hour's work and about 12 hours of cooking, we got an amazing meal that could feed, honestly, 20 people. We got some garnishes here, our salsa, our radishes, our white onion, some lime wedges. I'm gonna tuck in. I'm also a big fan of the double stack of tacos. Brisket, couple of radishes, a little bit of onion, some salsa. That is so delicious. The beef really shines through, and then all the garnishes really just bring it home. Anyway, legends, thank you so much for watching, and do not forget, go talk to your local butcher. They're a wealth of knowledge, and if you make friends with them, they'll probably look after you a little bit. A huge thank you again to Australian Beef for sponsoring this video, and we'll see you next week. I'm about to go and devour 15 more of these tacos.